Start 3ds Max. Before you import your environment, set the 3ds Max units to meters, as this was the setup you had in Cityscape. It is always a good idea to have the same units set up between two applications when you're going from one to the other. The display unit scale can be set to your liking, but keep it in metric for this exercise. Verify that your rendering engine is set to Mentoray. You will need this later to set up a daylight system. While you're at it, set the resolution to HDTV 1280 by 720. That's the equivalent of 720p resolution. If you prefer to save time on test renders, then reduce the resolution further, like 800 by 450. Choose the Import tool and navigate to the folder where you saved your scenic road file and open it. The FBX import dialog appears. Leave the default values and click OK to import the file. The file is imported, and while the geometry seems identical to what it was in Cityscape, there are a few problems to look out for. Render the scene. The first problem that becomes apparent is the total lack of proper lighting and of a background. With an outside scene, this can be easily remedied by setting a daylight system. Create the daylight system in the top view and a little to the side. As you create it, you are encouraged to use the MR photographic exposure and say yes to that. Once you have the compass, move the mouse further to establish the orbital scale, sun position. Set the hour of day to 15, that's 3 p.m. Go to the Modified panel. Since you'll be using the Mentoray rendering engine, set the sunlight to MR Sun and the skylight to MR Sky. You are prompted to use the MR Physical Sky background. This is a gradient background that changes colors based on the time of day, and say yes to that. Render again. The lighting seems better now, but the render is still a bit dark. Go to the Environment dialog and set the exposure value to 14. Render again. The scene is now brighter. In the MR Sky Advanced Parameters rollout, set the blur value to 0.5. This will soften the horizon line and will be useful later as you adjust the ocean's parameters. We'll get to the water in a moment, but take a look first at some of the bizarre bump lines on the terrain. These are happening because of a normal map that Cityscape created at export time. The normal map was created to encompass the whole terrain, but right now it is styling. To see it better, open the Slate Material Editor. Use the Material Picker to display the terrain's material in the editor. The material is a multi-sub material because the terrain and the roads are part of the same mesh. The first two sub-materials represent the terrain. The first one is for grass, the second for dirt. A single normal map affects the bump channels of both sub-materials. Double-click the last node in the chain to view the parameters of the normal map. Click View Image to view the normal map. Notice that it represents the whole terrain. You can make out the twisty road and part of the freeway. The coastline is also clearly visible. Use the Show the Standard Map in Viewport icon to see how the normal map is styling on the dirt part of the terrain. This implies a problem in the mapping coordinate translation between the two applications. To fix this, you need to apply new mapping coordinates to the terrain. However, you have to be careful not to mess up the mapping coordinates of the roads, which seem to have been translated properly. If you select the terrain and apply a UVW map modifier, the normal map seems to project properly, but now you've lost the markings on the roads. When you imported the FBX file, all the mapping coordinates embedded in the geometry were based on map channel ID number 1. In order not to override the proper road markings, set the new UVW mapping modifier to map channel ID number 2. This fixes the road, but brings back the problem with the tiling normal map. In the Slate Material Editor, Set the normal bitmap to follow the mapping coordinates of channel number 2. You now have effectively rerouted the map channel of the normal map, while the road textures are using the embedded mapping coordinates of the FBX file. If you wish, select submaterial number 2 and set it to show in the viewport. Render the scene and notice the improvement. The next problem you will tackle is the water. The nice animated water in Cityscape translated as a dull flat blue color in 3ds Max. The water surface is not part of the terrain geometry. That's a good thing, as it becomes easier to manipulate. One of the problems is that the water mesh doesn't extend beyond the boundaries of the terrain. You'll replace it with a simple plane primitive, which you will place at the same height as the existing water object. After that, you can delete the original. The advantage of using a plane primitive is that although it is not bigger than the terrain itself, it can be made to expand at render time. Set its scale to 10 so that it renders 10 times bigger than its display size. Next, you create a material for it. In the Slate Material Editor, drag a new Arc and Design material, and then double-click its node to see its properties. Choose the Water Reflective Surface template, and then apply it to the plane primitive. Render again to see the results. If you need to make changes, go to the bump map level to adjust wave sizes, direction, and speed. One last adjustment to be made concerned props that rely on transparency maps such as those palm trees. In the Slate Material Editor, create a new view and pick up the tree material to view its components. Double-click the Materials node to view its properties. The material is a standard one and currently only relies on diffuse and bump normal maps. The geometry of the leaves relies on flat polygons that render on one side only. Enable the two-sided option so that the material renders on both sides of the tree leaves. That's better, but you still need to introduce the opacity maps. Fortunately, the bitmap that is used in the diffuse channel is a PNG file with embedded alpha. To use that, shift-drag the diffuse map to make a copy. Double-click the new map node and set its mono-channel output to alpha. Connect the new node to the opacity channel of the material and render again. Save your file to the same folder where you saved your FBX file and where you downloaded the assets for this exercise. In the last movie of this series, you will use a utility that ships with 3ds Max 2011 to animate a car by actually driving it along your scenic roads.